There we go. All right. Okay. Hi everyone. This is the UX and product meeting for release, and today we're going to talk a little bit about our strategy update. Um, uh, as similar to what we discussed last week on kind of prioritization. And last week we talked about how important things like fixing our environments are. So in the background, I've been uh, doing a bunch of customer interviews, looking at our roadmap to see what makes sense. And my conclusion, if there is such a thing, is that it's obvious that release is a really important stage for GitLab. Customers, especially large customers, are able to adopt obviously our source code management in our CI and often our security features. And they actually would love to adopt our release features, but our release features are simply not, I'm not sure what the adjective is, mature, either mature or full featured enough for enterprises to adopt. And previously, there was a notion that the most important things are some of the more advanced features, such as progressive delivery, or even focusing on CD by itself. And we need to make these features more discoverable in order for more users and customers to adopt. What I've been finding out is for customers that are smaller and or have different kinds of setup, they can adopt continuous delivery via GitLab as it is without a problem. The real problem is for many of our larger users, they are blocked from adopting our more kind of, I guess, advanced features in release because they have more fundamental problems that they haven't solved yet, such as coordinating a complicated release, working with a lot of people, having prioritizations of release. All of this point to the importance of release orchestration. And release orchestration to me is also very highly related to both environments and secrets management or deploy keys and things of that nature. So in this, I've linked a merge request in our agenda, as well as a follow-up issue that talks about the alignment between groups and categories. And Daniel, you had a thought. Can you voice over it?
Yeah, I think it's better for you to run through the content first, because these are just thoughts, and I would like to hear more your vision.
Yeah, okay, I can run over the content. So the biggest change is how to read this update. There's a lot in here, but what's most important is, sorry, I'll share my screen actually. What's most important and how do you what to take away from here? Ooh, it's hard to find. There's a section called one year strategy, I believe. Here it is.
Oh, there you go. I was going to tell you to check the review app, and then maybe you can just review the page.
Oh yeah, that would have been much easier. So
Use deployments. Come on.
Starting from this section here, environment. We talk about in order to execute our strategy. There's some basics we need to take care of. We need to take care of environments. We need to take care of platform. And platform is something coming out of another set of research where we were realizing in order to enable a platform engineer to help their development teams be successful, right now, many platform teams are kind of doing things like creating a baseline CI/CD, similar to how we created our ADO templates and applying it to different projects, hoping that people can use what they produce as a standard way of doing both CI and deployment. But the reality is that's really hard to do because YAML is not really extensible. It can get really complicated, and we don't provide any toolings to manage any of those type of things. So platform environments has to do with that set of problems. And the other takeaway is like, where are we going to be focused? We're going to be focused on Kubernetes management. That's nothing new. We are going to be focused on release orchestration, which is new as far as this page goes, but it goes in line with what we were talking about before. Infrastructure as code goes hand in hand with Kubernetes management, still really important. And then lastly, being able to measure success. Kind of our investment in DORA management continues to be super important. And so this is going to be our focus area. Whereas before we talked about focusing on CD, focusing on progressive delivery. If we have more resources, they might be a focus area, but even if we expand the team today, I think that would be too much. And I'd rather have the teams be focused on one and at most two categories at most at any given time. And that will be hopefully our kind of or how we implement and build stuff going forward.
Thanks for that, Kevin. You actually responded my first question partially on how we plan to break down this conversation and prioritize investment. With that said, two questions about two of the directions you pointed. The first one, Kubernetes management. Today, it has a lot of overlap with configure, right? How do we plan to break this down?
So when I'm talking about deployment, one thing that's important is a basic premise of why we created this new direction page is the fact that the line between configure and release is blurred.
Right.
So when I talk about Kubernetes management, I'm not referring to this is like something release needs to work on. I'm just pointing out this is something that we as GitLab need to work on. So as it stands today, Kubernetes management is something that the configure team is currently focused on, and they will continue to do so.
Right. Yeah, I had a similar question about DORA metrics and optimize, but you just answered it as well.
Cool.
My next question is partially based on the mentions I saw to backstage along the discussion. And it's essentially, there's a lot of concepts in infrastructure that GitLab does not necessarily focus a lot on. The first that comes to mind is services, right? When a new organization adopts GitLab, there's nothing really that streams at them. This is where your services live, or this is how you do service discovery, or how you measure service health. And I wonder how much, to which extent, we should make an effort to map our product offerings to these concepts that users have, that customers have. Because of course you can have your services in GitLab, right? You can have one project for services, or maybe a bunch of services in a monorepo in one project. But we don't necessarily make that clear. We don't make the happy path for that clear. And I've seen feedbacks before to the line of, oh, GitLab wants me to do things on the GitLab way, right? Which can be useful, can be, depending on the case, the best way. But then I wonder, what is the sweet spot that we can find where we can shape the product to the use case that the users have, while also taking advantage of the good stuff that we already offer?
Yeah, that's a really great question. This is my way too early opinion. So fundamentally, I think our groups, subgroups, and project-based hierarchy is too rigid and strict, and to base everything off of that is not intuitive, and like the problem it creates is unless you set things up in a certain way, you can't take full advantage of GitLab, and that's a problem for us because that's a problem. Period. The users doesn't get a benefit, and we can't drive usage and adoption of our features as a result. And a prime example of this, before we even talk about services, is when we think about DORA metrics. Right now we have it at the group and project level, which is great. But let's say you're measuring DORA metric for a project that exists, that's working well, that a team is responsible for, but they're not working on it because it's built, it's ready. Then all of a sudden your DORA metrics look terrible. What you're doing there is incentivizing teams to game the system to work on something that's not necessary. So as I talk to customers, many have pointed out how we draw circles. The most important circle is the concept of a team, but a team does not map cleanly necessarily to a group or a project. It can, but that's not how they set it up in the beginning. So therefore, they're not gonna jump through all sorts of hoops to redo all these admin setup, which is a problem. And services, perhaps it's on a different axis altogether, but it's another one of those things. It's like a concept that exists in people's minds. And we see projects like Backstage IO, and there's actually a bunch of SaaS offerings out there too that kind of looks at this problem. It's a core concept of people's work. People align incident response around the concept of the service. People align metrics and health around the concept of service. And the service is meant to be a reusable component. And when you get really large, and you have a backlog of many services, it becomes something that needs to be scaled and managed in some fashion. I certainly believe there is opportunity for us to kind of jump into this space as well. But that said, I think at least for my viewpoint, is that more important than say enabling enterprises to work on releases via GitLab? I don't think so, because I think that's a problem that we're ready to solve right away. Whereas service, how we solve that feels more nebulous. Perhaps if we start to do some research around this topic, we'll change our mind. But today, I feel unsure about it. And another approach could simply be Backstage is an open source project. We can take it, plug it in, and offer it as a service. Is that a possibility? I think it could be. It's something that's worth exploring, in my opinion. But I don't know.
Yeah, good points. I think we're still a little far off from that. But yeah, perhaps the direction we're gonna take will take us closer, and then it will be a smaller jump.
Yeah. Cool. And any other thoughts on the strategy update? And sorry, I just put this on yesterday. I didn't give you a lot of time to read. Awesome. We can move on. Another thing I want to mention is, we've been talking a lot about environments, and I've been hearing a different perspective from specifically Victor. I love for us to all get together and talk about it together in a Think Big section on June 10th. So I'm going to propose environments to be the topic we get to. in a few days.
That's awesome.
Sounds great.
Are you going to be the facilitator, Kevin? I don't think I remember seeing your name there. Okay.
I am. Yeah, I'm the facilitator for that session.
Awesome. I'll attend. I had to hear. Can I jump to the next to my item? Yeah, cool. I just wanted to hear from you folks if you have any status updates on the planning issues for the 14.0 and the 14.1. If there's anything open and pending that you need to discuss.
So 14.0, I haven't heard anything, nor have I frankly been looking to see how the updates or progress is going. One thing is Shinya is out, so Shinya is was gonna be the main person to work on some of the things in P2. I should check in with Nathan to see how the lead time for MRs is going, which is our main thing. And then I'm assuming people are on top of the deprecation work, which is the most important thing we need to get done in 14.0. But that's a good reminder. I'll follow up probably early next week on this topic. 14.1, Nicole has been helping me. She's been starting to, as far as the work to be done, she's been starting to move bugs and these performance issues into either into this issue or tagging them with the milestone or adding release or candidate 14.1 candidate labels to a bunch of different issues. So at some time next week, I'm going to start to populate this issue as well, though I haven't had a chance to do it yet. What about from your perspective?
So from the design side on 14.0, I finished working on the smaller issue that I had today, waiting for some feedback, but it's mostly a copy issue, so I think it'll be able to move forward fairly well. It is also scheduled for front end for 14.0, so it's good that I already finished it in case Nathan was about to start working on it. Hopefully there won't be any blockers from design for that. And yeah, I'm moving forward with the next issue, which was display environment here on the environment dashboard. Just started looking at it, but it should be fairly simple as well. But yeah, we'll keep you folks updated on it.
I have a question, which is for release team, the weight is based on how many MRs the engineers estimates. What is a weight for UX?
So there is a formal definition of UX weight that I actually.
Is it GitLab formal?
Yeah, it's on the handbook. I'll share.
I just don't know anything.
I'll share the link on the Zoom chat so we can take a look quickly.
Okay.
It's just added on the agenda as well.
Okay.
But to be honest, I only use this formal definition starting on 14.1. So it's where you can see I have a much higher weight, but also because 14.1 is a bit more, how can I say, daring for me to see in terms of capacity. But yeah, essentially a weight of 1 is a really small thing that should take a couple of hours and doesn't take a lot of feedback. Then weight of 2, requires a little bit of more work. It's a bit, how can I say, arbitrary, but it's a good guardrail to define how big of a design work you're going to do.
Got it. Yeah, this is like small, medium, large type weighting system.
Yeah, t-shirt sizing.
How do you think about your own personal capacity?
So I'm planning to start on the next milestone 14.1, working with around 10 points of capacity. So the next one is 12, and 14.2 is, I think, 13. But still figuring out what these numbers mean for me, because it's also very new for me to work with weighting this way.
Okay. Cool.
On this topic, I pinged both of you on an iteration that Hayana suggested me. I added to right underneath the design backlog on the milestones, a table for the ongoing design work, essentially making it clear that 70% of my time is focused on milestone work, on issues and design issues that are assigned to me. And then the other 10 and 20% are either for higher level strategic stuff for release, and also within the design community. So career development, contributions to the design system, coffee chats, that kind of thing. It's a piece of work that is harder to quantify and put in aside. So I wanted to make it transparent that I'm also doing that work.
Oh, cool. I have something similar. Hold on 1 second. Let me pull it up. So I have this thing. Which if you look at the top of that page, this is how I think about how I spend my time. So as you can see, in theory, I should be spending a lot of time on hiring. But to be honest, that's sometimes it's really hard because you get sucked into your job. But anyway, this is my ideal plan for this quarter. And unfortunately for me, I don't know if it's 110%. It feels probably more like 150% these days. But anyway, we'll get through it.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I asked you this question before. So I believe you should have input on who we hire next. Previously, I asked you if you want to participate in the interview process, and the answer at the time, if I remember correctly, was something along the lines, I knew I'm starting. There's a lot to get onboarded on. I want to give you that. Ask the question again, see if you change your mind. The way we've been doing it in Monitor is Amelia and Crystal, the hiring manager, team up on a single session of interview. So, because the questions I think can be very similar because at the end of the day, it's like, how do we partner with this person? Is this partnership going to be successful? I personally believe that's a very useful thing. Curious if you want to participate. The answer can still be no. That's totally fine.
The answer is absolutely yes. Also,
okay, great.
Part of my expectations as a senior designer. I was just wrapping up the final pieces of onboarding training. So next up in line for me is interview training. So hopefully I can do that next week. And as soon as that, I think part of the training is to start shadowing interviews anyway, right, Hayana?
Yeah, but then these are like peer interviews. So I really appreciate, Kevin, you bringing this topic. It was the back of my head, and thank God you touch base on this. I would love Daniel, if Daniel could join us in these interviews. Same for Vitika and Nadia in Verify, right? We are also hiring a PM in CI. So Daniel, you would need to have that interview training at least finish the shadowing part. I would say before that. But Kevin, how I'm aligning with Jackie in Verify is that I'm the one in the interviews and Daniel is shadowing. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't ask or participate. But just for the sake of the bureaucracy, the process part, we both would be in the PM UX interview, and then we go a little bit back and forth in the questions so that he can also he's also able to get feedback on the questions and how to conduct the interviews, etc. But I would love if he could do that and participate with you in the release interview process.
Great. To be clear, at least what I'm proposing now and what's written down in our PM hiring process is the UX and engineering are together in one session. Are you proposing there's a separate UX component? No? Okay.
No, doing the same. It's the same what we're doing for Verify. We're doing the EM and the UX interview at the same time. But what
you would like to be included as well. So invite both you and Daniel. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
As long as Daniel didn't finish the training, the interview training process, yes. If he had finished, I would be comfortable with him being there by himself. And we also have to align on the questions. I'm working with Jackie on those. But now that you reminded me that you're also hiring, I'm going to open an MR and I'll ping you to also give feedback on the UX questions for this interview, so we can have everything in Greenhouse standardized for everybody.
Cool. And if you wanted to, there is, oh, sorry, we're over. Sorry, let me find it real quick. Hiring process. I should update this to say engineering manager. Please help update this page.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm overloading this one. I think this should be changed to interview engineering manager and UX interview.
Okay. Yeah, and I would align with Rupert, so he can add this also to Greenhouse, and we have the same questions there.
Cool.
So that we can use once the MR is approved for the changes here.
Cool. Awesome. I can approve it.
Thanks for, you made my life so much easier now. Now I don't have to look for this file.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you both. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks. See you, folks.
Daniel, não se vá. Segura.
Hey.
Stop recording, maybe.